Let's discuss this further with Ulrich Bruckner, who's a Professor of European Studies at Stanford University in Berlin. Really good to have you back with us, Ulrich. No, undoubtedly, as the investigations continue into the motive of this attack, questions are now turning to the issue of gun violence and gun control in Austria. Explain to us what the situation is in Austria. How common is gun violence in that country?
Well, the country is in deep shock because this is the first time that a mass shooting in a school happened. There were two smaller situations in the past when a single person was killed, but it felt as if Austria belongs to the happy islands in a sea of violence around the world, in which the social fabric doesn't allow to cross lines like this to kill innocent people like school children. And of course, we will see now a discussion whether we should change the laws or whether the number of weapons or the accessibility of weapons could stop a catastrophe like this. If this would be a large number of cases, like the introduction of a law to introduce in the 1970s the safety belt in cars, this immediately has far-reaching consequences. But we are talking about a single situation, and single situation can never be stopped by the law.
Yes, and the magnitude of this tragedy has been reflected by the government's response in Austria. They've announced 3 days of national mourning beginning tomorrow. It really has shocked all Austrians, it seems, and even those further afield. Explain to us what likely reaction we can expect from Austrian officials after this mourning period ends. Can we expect stiffer gun control measures across the country, and are Austrians likely to adopt them?
Well, we will certainly have a discussion about it. Whether this leads to a different security situation in numbers remains to be seen. Because as I said, this is the first time that a mass shooting in a school happened in Austria's history. And in the past, this was sort of the normal, that people only paid attention to what's happening within their nation. But now we are talking on TRT world, which means that people who watch news do not focus just on a single state. They perceive what's going on in other parts of the world, and that means there's a new normal. And that globalization of perception changes the situation on the ground. If you make a law for a single territory, but what people observe or what social media broadcasts is no longer strictly focusing on Austria, then there's a mismatch between what you can control and what taboos are broken in the perception of people who consider this to be an act of liberation or hate or whatever their motivation is.
Yes, and we know that Austrian police have said that the suspect involved legally owned the weapons or weapons that were used in this attack. We also are seeing various media reports saying that a letter has been discovered from the alleged suspect. Whether or not we'll see the contents of that letter is another matter. But when we talk about the issue of hate crimes and gun violence involving hate crimes, how commonplace is that in Austrian society?
Well, as I said, violence in the Austrian society and in most European societies is not as drastic as we see in countries that have a much more complicated relationship with violence. Having said this, one can never rule out that even with the strictest rules, the criminal energy of someone who wants to commit a crime would be stopped by restrictive laws. Germany has restrictive laws and not that many people per capita have a gun, and it's still possible that even minors who know where the key is to unlock a well-protected weapon of their parents or family members could commit a similar crime. This happened in the past, and it was not possible to constrain this by strict laws. If there is enough criminal energy, such things could never be prevented. And at the same time, we are talking about open societies in which technically data analysis would make it more likely to find suspects or to trace potential risks in society, but then we would sacrifice personal freedom rights in the name of security. This is a scenario that was broadcasted over 20 years ago in a movie called Minority Report, in which the police stopped a gangster from committing a crime before it even happened because data was analyzed in that way. This is now 20 years later technologically possible with artificial intelligence. But whether we want to live in a society like this, in which we sacrifice freedom rights in the name of a higher security, this is a discourse that we have to address.
Okay, Ulrich Bruckner, we will have to leave it there. Thanks as always for joining us on the program.